And so it was really slow going, and it took a lot of effort in the beginning to figure things out. But then once we got it figured out, for us, Instagram started growing.
Hey, y'all, welcome back. You are going to love today's show with Jamie Bailey on how she went from lost on Instagram to growing a thriving platform, which is why I wanted to mention our growth challenge this week inside our Authentic Instagram Engagement Facebook group. You'll gain real followers and connect with a thriving Christian female entrepreneurial community. Plus, get in on our special training on Friday, January 28th, 2022. So please join us. We want you in our community so we can get to know you better and help you with your Instagram goals in 2022. We will link the group in our show notes so you can join. And now here's Jamie. Listen in.
Welcome to Authentic Online Marketing with Ruthie Gray. Growing awareness for your blog, podcast, book, or product involves more than dancing to reels and yelling, "Buy my thing." This show models quality over clamor so you can put your spin on your message and market in a way that feels authentic to you, because nobody wants to sound like an infomercial. And now, here's your host, Ruthie Gray.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, I have Jamie Bailey with me of Expedition Marriage. She's a good friend and a former client, as well as a member of my insider mentorship, and also creator of some of the most fun reels you'll ever see on Instagram, bar none. Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, Ruthie. So good to be with you.
I'm so glad you're here too. Jamie has been on the show before. It's probably been over a year. You've really experienced a lot of Instagram growth since then, haven't you?
Yes, we have. Surprisingly, it's been exciting to grow like we have lately.
It is. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Jamie is a professional Christian counselor and marriage coach. Together with her husband, Chris, they run a private practice and Expedition Marriage, a marriage ministry, where they help countless couples learn to enjoy the journey of marriage. They are also weekly hosts and founders of the Expedition Marriage podcast and co-authors of the Newlywed Couples Devotional. Jamie has a real passion for helping healthy couples continue to thrive and helping hurting couples find the fullness in Christ they were meant to have. So glad you're here.
Thank you.
Well, Jamie, we've referenced your growth on Instagram, and we kind of started at rock bottom together, didn't we?
We did. We sure did.
I remember some of those early conversations like, what am I supposed to share in stories? My life is boring. There's nothing to share.
Yes, I remember the early conversations of how do I make a colored background in my stories?
All the basic things,
Yeah.
well, from basic tech to strategy, but wow, you have come leaps and miles, haven't you?
Yes, I think we have.
So proud of that. So share with us why you decided to add Instagram into the mix of your practice and your ministry.
Well, Instagram for us was an opportunity to reach more people. You know, we run a private practice, and that's a day-to-day, hour-by-hour situation. And when you're trying to help save marriages and help, marriages grow and hurting couples, one at a time is not cutting it in today's society. And it's also, it can be exhausting as a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
I love what I do, but there's a lot of heart and a lot of emotion, and it's a lot of heavy lifting that I will do in a day's work. And so being able to have a platform like Instagram where I can cast that net wider, and instead of just doing one-on-one, begin to do larger groups and larger audiences. And in addition to that, most of the people we would see in our office, they're hurting. They're already in trouble and needing hope. A lot of them are last-ditch efforts. And at some point, we knew we've got to get ahead of this problem. And Instagram has provided an excellent way for us to do some of that preventative work and start reaching people and guiding them and giving them resources and tools and even just solid biblical marriage quotes, that potentially can change their mindset and how they're feeling about marriage and where they're at and just prevent some of these problems. So really, long story short, Instagram allows us to reach thousands of people instead of just one couple an hour.
And I know as you started growing and picking up traction, it was blowing your mind how many times your quotes were being shared. Like you would actually send me your stats and you were so excited about it because it's proof that you are hitting the pain points there and really resonating with people, and they're consuming your content and they're sharing it. And that is just helping spread the word. Like you said, cast that net wider.
Yes.
So how quickly did it take to get to your current number of subscribers now?
Well, it's a little challenging to answer that because it was slow, a little bit faster, and then boom, take off running. Because if you were to look at our feed from the very beginning, it looks entirely different than what it looks like now. And so we were fumbling around, honestly, for almost 8 months to a year. Just trying to figure out how this whole thing works. And that's about when I met you. And so now we're almost 2 years into this and I've got it down. We've got it down. And so it really, once we learned what works for us and the tools to use, then it just takes off. And we can't even keep up with I'm not even paying attention anymore to how many new followers we're getting a day and all that. I'm just naturally going, and it is growing based off what we're doing now. And so it was really slow going, and it took a lot of effort in the beginning to figure things out. But then once we got it figured out, for us, Instagram started growing, and it's fun and it's purposeful. And like you said, when people share, it's so exciting to us because, statistically, 750,000 divorces happen every year. And to know every time somebody shares something, it's getting into the hands and into the heart of somebody who probably needs that. And that is just tremendous. And so the more we grow, it's not about, we have this big following. It's about we're changing lives. And so that follower count, it absolutely is important to us, but for a very different reason. But now that we're in our groove, we are just growing so much faster than we did during that first maybe initial year.
Yes, for sure. It is slow going at first, and you have to figure out your systems and your mojo. Speaking of systems and such, what are some of the things that are just right in place for you now that don't take a lot of thought?
Creating content has become much easier for us now. Because, I keep a little note section on my phone, and when I have a thought, I just put it in there. So I have a one-stop shop to kind of go to when I'm going to create. And we've kind of really gotten good at repurposing our content. We will take a podcast, a blog, a quote, a carousel, a reel, and hit the same topic in all those different neighborhoods, all those areas. And we've become like a well-oiled machine with doing that. And so that has been a great tool for us.
Repurposing is where it's at. If you really know your audience and their pain points, and you are consistently putting out content, then the best thing you can do is to repurpose. And I do love how you do that so well. So let's go with 2021. At the beginning of 2021, I don't know how many thousands of followers you have amassed just in 2021, but it really picked up. What do you think changed or clicked?
Well, I think it was a couple of things. One thing that helped us a lot is, you're always telling us in your bio, have that freebie, have that call to action, go grab this thing, go do that. And we were doing that. And in the beginning, we would throw this and that out there and all these different things. But what I finally came up with was a 30-day prayer challenge. And promoting that through reels, through carousels, through in all the neighborhoods that you teach us about, promoting it there and then having it in our bio. So if anybody comes and looks at our page, they're going to see that we have a 30-day free, praying for your husband and praying for your wife challenge, a challenge that hits our niche and hits our people and where they're at. They were all over it. And so that helped us grow by leaps and bounds alone. And another thing that helped us really grow, what clicked, is I kind of got good at what I was practicing. All those things, like you mentioned in the beginning, how to show up in stories and how to do things like that and get in your story feed and share your life. I was so uncomfortable doing it, but I began to practice it. And so our content was getting really good. We knew the pain points of our audience, but they were also getting to know us through our stories.
Yes.
And so the more we would practice that, and the more I changed our mindset, I say ours, but it was really my mindset. My husband has no problem showing up in video and all of that stuff.
That's obvious.
Yes. But for me, I had to get over that analysis paralysis because I wanted to know, and you remember me from the beginning, I had all the questions. Well, what about this? How do I do this? And I would get stuck researching things all the time. But now, what happened is I'm like, I don't care about all that. I found the middle ground, the sweet spot of knowing all the technical stuff and the algorithm stuff you teach us, but also combining that with now what works for me.
Right.
What works for us? Where's the natural fit? And so combining those two and just going and doing it and being willing to fail and to mess it up and realize when you stumble on a word, that's relatable. When you have a typo in your carousel or in something, there was days where I would have taken that down and deleted it. But now I'm like, whatever, people misspell stuff all the time.
It is true.
It's so natural. The more natural our feed is, the more we grow. Because it's who we are. And we're trying to attract people to what we have. And we're just we've learned to give them that.
For sure. And I remember us discussing challenges for opt-ins way back there in the early part of the year in our membership. And you had come up with that 30-day challenge and we were bouncing ideas. And that was your thought. And I didn't know if it would fly or not because it was 30 days, instead of just 5 or 10. But that really worked for you. And that just goes to show that your people and you have to look at what they're asking for from you. And even if it may feel a little uncomfortable or go against maybe the norm, you got to try, don't you?
Right. And it worked great. Like right out of the gate, we had over 700 women sign up for this 30-day Praying for Your Husband challenge, like out of nowhere. And that was within a week. And so that was amazing. And so knowing, and it is taking the risk because you can, like you're saying, well, typically 5 to 10-day challenges are great. And I'm over here going, I respect that. You're probably right with that, but let me tweak it to make that fit what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
And sometimes that needs to be okay. So you have to know how the algorithm works. You have to know what things work well. But if those rules take you out of your authentic message, then you want to stick with your authentic message all day long.
That's
because
true.
You'd rather have the 300 people who need what you have than 10,000 followers who aren't going to participate in what you're offering.
Right. So good. So good. So maybe you already told us this, but what advice do you have for others who are struggling to grow on the platform?
Oh, hands down, nail down your niche or your niche. However, I know people are going to be like, it's niche. I'm a niche girl.
Me too.
Yeah. Nail that down. You have to know what you're showing up to do. And this is going to be a simple thing, but it is really hard. You have to practice being yourself. You have to practice showing up as who you are. And you can't be afraid to embrace the trial and error phase. We had to work so many kinks out and realize, okay, we tried that. We thought it was great. In our heads, this was wonderful. But we cast it out there and you hear crickets. And that's okay. That's okay. So embracing that trial and error phase, because you have to do it. You have to move to grow. and you have to practice all that, and you have to make it natural to who you are, because really, I am a big believer, and I think you are as well. This should be fun.
Uh-huh.
Instagram should be fun. And there is some stress in the beginning, but you can't let that stop you. You just have to kind of embrace that it's uncomfortable while I learn.
Yes. And keep your head down and stay in your lane and stay true to what your message is, and stop looking around.
Keep showing up, and you have to be consistent. You can't just postpone doing anything for like a week because you're scared you're behind the scenes making it perfect, which is what I used to do. Just put it out there. Be consistent and show up.
Yes. Amen. So knowing your product, obviously, knowing it well has a lot to do with your success, even with a small following, which you had in the beginning. So how would you advise women to narrow down their content if they want to take their business to Instagram?
I would start with making sure they know their passion. They have to be excited about what they're going to do and what they're going to offer, and that falls in the line with, knowing your niche as well, knowing what you're even going to do. If you don't know what you're going to do on Instagram, you're probably going to, be all over the place with things. And so you want to know what your passion is and think about what excites me. What makes me excited to show up? We get excited to show up knowing we can change marriages. And for some women, it may be you may get excited because you can show up and offer a product that is going to beautify their home, that's going to make a woman feel better, that's going to help a woman grow in the word. You have to be excited about what you're presenting and what you're putting out there. And you can use that. You can figure out your passion by what excites you, what you're good at, and kind of what stems from your life experiences. For me, I'm passionate about this. I grew up in a divorced, dysfunctional family. And so I have that history. I have that understanding of what it's like to be in that position. And so I want to use my life story on Instagram as well. And so I think using your story, using your gifts, and knowing what you're excited about. And that's what you want to focus on, because these broad brushes, they're never going to attract your ideal customer or client. So you're showing up looking for very specific people, and you have to identify who those people are and then bring all that you have to the table.
Yes, I love that. And what comes to mind when I think about combining the threads, like you said, of your passions and what you're good at and things like that, is just kind of mind mapping or just writing it out, writing out circles and connecting the dots. And I remember doing an exercise like that way back in the arc ages when I first started blogging, because I didn't know, and then it became clear to me, oh, I'm supposed to be talking to young moms because this is what I do, and that was that phase of life. But a lot of times it's obvious to other people, but not to you too.
That is so true. And I think there's so much pressure to be all things to all people. And that's what we get on Instagram wanting to start out doing. And you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to know who it is that you're talking to, because we're not going to reach anybody if we're speaking so generically that it just a little bit applies to everybody.
Yep.
You want to know your target audience and go after them.
Amen. Good thoughts. So what would you say are your top 3 tips for the woman entrepreneur who wants to monetize on Instagram?
I would say you have to get to know your audience. You have to get to know your audience. And some of that takes a little bit of time figuring out. You may think you do, but come to find out, they're not wanting what you're thinking. And so you have to figure out the things that they want based off of what am I putting out there that's working and what's not. And that's information. If you have a failed reel, well, aside from the algorithm, if you have failed content, a failed product, a failed challenge, that's information. It's actually not a failure. It's an opportunity to learn. And so you have to put stuff out there because you have to get to know your audience and pay attention to them. Look at your insights like you always teach. Know, what are my top posts? What are my audience? What are they wanting? What do they like? What do they resonate with? And in addition to that, build relationships with your people. respond to their DMs, use those sticker buttons to communicate on your story feed, respond back to people, get to know, they will tell you their stories. And it can be, even if you're looking for, new candles, people will say, hey, do you have this kind of scent? Or I'm trying to set this mood in my house. They want to talk to you. We're still humans. God made us for relationships. You have to bring relationships into this Instagram game and use it for what it was made for. And that's engagement and relationships. So don't be afraid to talk to your people. Pose questions, open-ended questions or not, and just engage back and forth with them. And the third one would be, you got to remind them of the problem that they have, whether it's a messy home and they need organization, or they need beautification, they need new hair products, whatever it is, they need help in their marriage. Know their problem and let them know what it is and that you have the answer to solve it. And that's what it's about. So don't be afraid to talk about the problems. They have to be reminded, remember this, why are you struggling with this when I can help you? So that would be my 3. Know your audience, build relationships with them, and remind them of the problems and that you have the solution.
And oftentimes we just assume that they know why we're there.
That's exactly right.
And we have to spell it out. You have to state the obvious on Instagram, because everyone moves so fast, everyone scrolls so fast, that you have to spell out what you offer and what you can do for them. And like you said, those conversations in the DM, those come from stories and from sharing your real life, like you were talking about. And it's okay if you don't sell candles, but you talk about candles. We're talking about regular conversations, just sharing your life in those stories. That's what stories are for, because that's where the DM is, right?
Yes, that is so true. And don't assume that because you put it out there once that everybody's seen it and you can't repeat it.
That's right.
You need to repeat things. We just did a poll. We did a reel where we shared a little bit of our story, got a big response from it. And I took it upon me because I'm like, everybody seems to like this. So let me dig into it. I took a poll and asked people how many of them knew that we originally had a difficult marriage. It was a 50-50 split. Half of our audience had no idea that we had struggled. And so now I know, and I would have thought, surely you know this. We share this all the time. No, don't assume your people know things. And so be repetitive. Get that message out there and repeat it in different ways and in different manners, because not everybody's going to remember it. And I remember in the beginning, I didn't want to reshare because I had already said that. Oh, you only got a handful of people seeing that, and then you're banking on them remembering it. So reshare your stuff, redo it, and say it again and again and again.
Yes, and that's the beauty of Instagram, all the different neighborhoods, is that even if you did it in a carousel, then you can do it in a different way in a reel, or you can go live, or just try the different modes, say it in a different way. And people are not going to know. I remember seeing that specific reel, Jamie, and I learned something about you in that reel too. But it was just so visual, and it really had a touch point there that resonated with people. So I love how you have just really embraced your message. But not only that, you already knew you had good content. That's one of the first things you said to me when we started working together a couple of years ago, is that we know we have good content. We just don't know how to find our people, and we don't know how to use the platform.
Right.
But it is quite obvious now that you have a grasp on it, a really good one. You know how to get to your people, and you know where they are, and you know how to connect with them, and they are coming. And I did want to mention that you even received a book deal for the book that you had, the Newlywed Couples book, from Instagram.
Yes, that was a mind-blowing thing. It's just a dream of ours, but because of the content we put out there. And that's one of the things you'll hear different Instagram experts all over, and make your, caption short, make them, medium, whatever. That's not who we are. And this is one of those areas where, okay, here's what Instagram says they want, but here's what's true to us. We have longer captions because we're teaching. We're teaching from them. And those longer captions are the things that landed us that book deal, because it allowed a publisher to read and to start to understand, this is what this person's going to write. This is what they're going to do. And so you have to stick true to yourself.
Yes, I love that. This has been so informative. Our listeners are going to love this, love your practical tips of how you went from point A, which was almost ground zero, to massive growth, exploding growth and connection with people. And so thank you so much today for taking the time to share with us, Jamie. Where can folks connect with you and Chris? Although I think we know.
Yeah, obviously on Instagram. So you can find us at expedition_marriage on Instagram. And you can also go to our website, which is expeditionmarriage.org. And we have all of our resources, links to our podcast. And this is all in our bio too, because we had a great teacher. So you can go to Instagram and find us everywhere from there.
So go follow Jamie and Chris. Definitely check out their reels. They will have you laughing within the next 30 seconds. Just go say hi to them, connect with them. And thank you so much again, Jamie, for being with us and sharing all your wisdom and your joy.
Thank you, Ruthie.
Wasn't that a great interview? Jamie shared tested advice for growing your own specific niched audience. And she and her husband, Chris, are ministering to and reaching literally thousands through Instagram now. And it's all because she put herself out there and was willing to embrace the awkward and experiment and learn and get over herself and her mindset in order to share her passion through her content. If you're ready to grow your Instagram, please let me remind you to just join us this week inside my Authentic Instagram Engagement Facebook group. You can search that name or click the show notes for the link. You'll find amazing community in there, because that's what we always offer in a group setting, because we believe community grows opportunity. Remember, the challenge starts today, January 24th, inside the Facebook group and extends for the whole week, culminating with a training on Friday the 28th. You'll want to get in that group so you can get in on all the announcements, all the community, all the threads, and all the goodness. So come over and see us and grow your circle so you can cast your net wider like Jamie did. See you inside the group.